There are moments in history when war stops being about territory, strategy, or even victory, and becomes something far darker. Not chaos, not rage, something calculated, something deliberate. In the winter of 1944, as American forces pushed toward Germany, General George S. Patton encountered one of those moments. Not on a battlefield, but in the ruins of a village that no longer existed in any meaningful sense. What he found there didn't just horrify him. It forced him to confront a truth about the war that even he hadn't fully understood. And what he later wrote about it reveals something deeply unsettling, not just about the enemy he was fighting, but about how systems can turn ordinary men into instruments of unimaginable cruelty. If you're into real, unfiltered history, the kind that doesn't get softened for comfort, this is exactly the kind of story you don't want to miss. So before we dive in, take a second to like the video, share it with someone who appreciates powerful historical storytelling, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives like this. Now, let's get into it. As Patton's Third Army advanced through Alsace, they weren't just encountering resistance, they were uncovering evidence of something much worse. Entire communities erased. Not collateral damage, not accidents of war, intentional destruction. One such place was the village of Marzas. By the time American troops arrived, it was nothing but burned walls and silence. The kind of silence that tells you something irreversible has happened. There were survivors, though not many. And what they described wasn't confusion or crossfire. It was systematic execution. An SS unit had entered the village months earlier. The population was gathered. The men were separated and shot. The women and children were locked inside the church. Then the church was set on fire. Anyone who tried to escape was gunned down. Afterward, the village itself was burned to the ground. When Patton heard the report, he didn't dismiss it or delegate it. He went there himself, walked through the ruins, listened to the survivors, stood inside what remained of that church. And for a man known for aggression and certainty, what followed was something different. Silence. Not anger, not theatrics. Just the weight of understanding settling in. What struck Patton wasn't just the brutality, it was the structure behind it. This wasn't a breakdown of discipline. It wasn't a rogue officer losing control. It was procedure, doctrine, training. The officer responsible, identified as SS Commander Heinrich Brenner, hadn't acted outside the system. Patton ordered intelligence to find him. And they did. Captured in early 1945, Brenner didn't deny anything. During interrogation, he described the massacre in cold clinical terms. He referred to the villagers as supporters of illegal combatants, and he framed the killings as necessary for security. There was no rage in his words, no remorse, just precision, efficiency, justification. That's what disturbed Patton the most, you know, because it meant something far more dangerous than simple cruelty. It meant the system worked exactly as intended. In his response to the interrogation report, Patton made something very clear. This man wasn't an exception. He wasn't some aberration of human behavior. He was the product of a machine designed to normalize the unthinkable. And that, more than anything, was what they were fighting. Patton insisted that his soldiers understand this, not to fuel hatred, but to eliminate illusion. Because, well, fighting an enemy you misunderstand is dangerous, but fighting one you clearly understand changes everything. He also insisted on something else, something that might seem surprising. Brenner was to be treated according to the Geneva Convention. Not because he deserved it, but because the integrity of the system enforcing justice mattered more than the crimes of the individual. That distinction was crucial. The difference between the two sides wasn't just who won, it was how they operated. After the war, Brenner was tried and convicted. Justice in the legal sense was carried out. But Patton had already seen the deeper issue. Punishing individuals wasn't enough. The system itself, the ideology, the structure, the training, had to be confronted. That realization would go on to shape how the world approached war crimes. The trials that followed didn't just prosecute actions, they examined systems, command responsibility, crimes against humanity. These weren't just legal innovations. They were attempts to answer the exact problem Patton had identified standing in the ruins of that village. And here's why this still matters. Because history isn't just about what happened. It's about understanding how it happened. Marzas wasn't destroyed because of chaos. It was destroyed because a system made it possible and acceptable. That's the part that demands attention. That's the part that echoes forward. Patton didn't live to see how those ideas would evolve. But in that moment, walking through the aftermath of something he couldn't categorize, he understood something fundamental. The war wasn't just about defeating an enemy. It was about dismantling a way of thinking that made atrocities routine. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. If you found this breakdown valuable, share it with someone who takes history seriously. Drop your thoughts in the comments, especially on whether you think systems or individuals bear more responsibility in cases like this. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep, unfiltered historical analysis like this.